Okay, so let's look at the interest rate swap. This is associated with the new training facilities. The team manager has suggested that the club need to invest in new training facilities, which will lead to better player performance and fitness. The board of directors have assessed this proposal, have agreed to spend the necessary 150 million needed. Titan FC will fund 50 million from cash resources due to come from its sponsor and will finance the balance with a 5-year loan to be taken out on 1 January 2012. The club's banker have agreed to provide the finance on either at a fixed rate of interest at 8% per annum or at a variable rate of LIBOR plus 1% per annum. So I want you to look at these two rates. That means if the company wants to take a fixed rate loan, it means that they can borrow at this rate, fixed rate at 8% and a variable rate at LIBOR plus 1%. Okay. The banker have also informed Titan FC that they have another client, Kendrico, who is seeking finance of the same value over the same term. Kendrico's credit rating is not as good as Titan FC, and they can raise finance at either 11%. So for Titan, they can raise finance at 11% fixed and LIBOR plus 2% variable. The bank is willing to arrange an interest rate swap in return for a fee of 0.5% per annum from each party. So if you look at this question now, it's all about interest rate swap. And for interest rate swap, there are 3 levels of interest rate swap. You have the fixed for variable, where a company will need a fixed rate loan, and another company will need a variable loan, where they will do a direct swap, the fixed for the variable. So that will be possible if one of the party has a comparative advantage over the other party. But in this question, let's take out the variable and look at the question. Titan FC can borrow the fixed rate loan at 8%. While Kendrico can borrow at 11%. That's for the fixed rate loan. On the other hand, for the variable loan, Seco can borrow at LIBOR plus 1%, while Keiko can borrow at LIBOR plus 2%. Okay, for the interest rate swap, this is, as I said, is a profit sharing question. And you just have 3 basic steps for the profit sharing question. The first step is to determine which type of loan each of the parties will be borrowing. Because if you look at this question, Seco has absolute advantage in both of the fixed and variable loan. So let's look at it. Here, it has 3%. Let me change this to percentage. 8%, 11%. So here we have LIBOR plus 1, LIBOR plus 2. That means there's a difference of 1%. Okay, so if you look at this question, the first thing you want to determine is which loan will C be borrowing, which will K be borrowing. But that determination will be based on the fact that you look at the two party, as I said, is it a comparative advantage or is it an absolute advantage? For here, CFC has an absolute advantage in the sense that for the variable loan, it can borrow better by 1%. For the fixed loan, it can also borrow better by 3%. So TICO should borrow the loan where it has the greater advantage. And it has a greater advantage in the fixed loan. So it has advantage over both, but a greater advantage in the fixed loan. So TICO should borrow the variable loan, the fixed loan, sorry, at 8%. So that means that he's borrowing this loan for KECO. That means TICO will be needing what? A variable loan for itself. So KECO, on the other hand, should borrow the variable loan. So this is the way it is. This is the swap. 8% LIBOR plus 2%. So they are borrowed for each other. So here now, if you look at it, TICO is borrowing. So since TICO is borrowing, you have 3% gain. If TICO had borrowed the variable loan also, there will be a gain of what? 1%. But now, TICO cannot borrow both the fixed and what? The variable. Therefore, KECO will be the one to borrow the variable loan. And if KECO borrow the variable loan, it's not going to be a gain, it will be a loss because TICO can borrow at a better rate. So it will be a loss of what? Of 1%. So the next thing you want to look at is what? The potential gain. How many percent will be the potential gain? TICO will gain, there will be a gain of KECO will gain 3%. If TICO borrows for him, he will gain 3%. But if he borrows for TICO, TICO will lose 1%. So if you had the gain and the loss together, it will give us a net of what? 2%. This plus this. So the potential gain is 2%. If you go back to the question, we're not told how this gain will be shared among the two parties. So we just assume that the gain will be shared equally. If your examiner have given you a percentage, that's one will take 60 or one will take 50, then you will have been able to share it that way. Okay, so with this, we can easily calculate the effective exchange rates. So for TICO, what will be the effective exchange rates for TICO? TICO is actually the one that we need the variable loan, while KECO will be the one that we need what? The fixed loan. So the effective rate now will now be this. TICO can borrow variable loan for himself at LIBOR plus 1%, while KECO can borrow for himself at 11% fixed rate. but there is a gain that both parties are enjoying. So let's see what the net outcome will be. So this actual is without the swap. Without the swap. So without the swap, this is what each person will have borrowed from the markets. Keiko will have borrowed at 11% instead of 8% that applied when Tico borrowed for Keiko. So we have a gain of how many percent? The gain now is 2%, and we assume that the 2% will be shared equally among both parties. So there's a gain of 1% each to both parties. So gain here is 1%. So for both parties. So what will now be the net? That will be the effective interest rates. So the net effect here will be equal LIBOR plus 1 minus 1% will take you back to LIBOR. While for Keiko, 11% minus 1% will take you to 10%. So this is the effective rate for both companies. So this is the final stage. The stage 3 is to just look at the table. After I've calculated the effective rates, how will the transaction, how will the money be refunded to each of the party? Having known that Tico has paid 8% for Keiko, and Keiko has paid LIBOR plus 2% for TFC. So we know that Keiko is supposed to pay 10%, which is this effective rate. So what do? Keiko should just refund this 10% back to Tico, while Tico should receive the 10%. That's the first leg of the refund. Okay, since Keiko has refunded, one thing I want you to know is that this is where you are going. Let me just make it clear that this is where you are going. You want your final answer to be 10% here, while you want your final answer here to be LIBOR, which is the effective rate of both parties. Okay. So now, Tico has refunded 10%. So what will be the balancing figure? The balancing figure will now be on this place, LIBOR plus 2% receipt, while this person will be refunding LIBOR plus 2%. So if we look at this, LIBOR plus 2% minus LIBOR plus 2% plus LIBOR plus 2%, this cancels this. What will be left will be what? This 10%, which is this balancing figure. This 10% is the balancing figure. Then for here, want to do the calculation, LIBOR plus 2% minus, both of them are minus. So minus LIBOR will be one corner, minus 8 plus 10 gives us minus 2. Give us plus 2, sorry. Plus 2 plus this minus 2 here will give us 0, while the balance will now be minus LIBOR. So that's the first way you can look at it. Okay, if you want to look at it from a second direction, let's assume that the first refund will be made by TFC. So if TFC decides to refund his own amount, decides, okay, I know that my effective interest rate supposed to be LIBOR. So let me just refund LIBOR straight. This person will be receiving LIBOR. This will receive LIBOR. So if this is the case, how much should Keiko refund back to Tico? In this first illustration, Keiko refunded 10%, but now Keiko borrowed LIBOR plus 2% for Tico, and that's what he's supposed to refund, but he has refunded it less 2%. So what's going to happen is that Keiko will also refund this, while he is going to receive 8%. So this is the trick here. The trick here is that the first leg of return, we assume that this person will refund the effective interest rate, which is LIBOR. So he's going to return definitely lower than, because he has the better advantage. So what he's going to refund will be lower than what Keiko borrowed for him. And what Keiko is going to refund will definitely be higher than what Tico borrowed for him, because his own effective rate is 10%, while this is 8%. Oh, so we're assuming that he's going to refund back to Tico 10%, which is this 8% plus 2%, which is the difference between 8 and this. While this person effective rate is LIBOR, sorry, or this person refunded, like this person borrowed for him at LIBOR plus 2%. So it means that if he's the one that will refund first, what he's going to refund will be what? LIBOR. He will take out that 2% first and refund the net to him, which is his own effective rate, because he's the one refunding first. But if it's this person refund first, that means this person doesn't have to refund 8%. He has to refund 8% plus 2% to make it 10. While this person refund LIBOR plus 2 minus 2%. So at the end of the day, the effective rate will still remain the same thing as it was, regardless of who is refunding first. So there's a bank charge which we'll take into consideration. So the effective rate will now be LIBOR plus the bank charge 0.5 and this is the effective rate for both parties after deducting the bank charge.